Yeah, that's very interesting, Karen. I think probably the best starting point is to actually sort of revisit the challenges that I explained last year. So really the analysis that we have done of the market and the buy-side sector in particular, we identified a number of key themes that Fidessa really uses to drive the analysis and the effort that we put into our product R&D spend. So the themes that we identified were around complexity, so really the broad mix of asset classes that our customers are trading, the fact they're trading globally in markets that are sometimes very difficult to trade in, they're trading in institutional size, these larger orders across fragmented markets are often quite difficult for them to trade. There's a lot of complexity in what these firms are doing today to support the demands that their end investors have for investment products with the right return profile. Coupled with that, we've obviously seen a huge wave of regulatory reform, probably the largest program of reform that our industry has ever seen. And it's not so much the fact that there is regulatory reform and there's a lot of it. Really the challenges are the fact that it all arrives at the same time, that often there's a lot of ambiguity in the regulations, that sometimes exists right up until the start date. We've seen that with the financial transaction tax and some other legislation where really the finer details are being resolved on the day of launch, which clearly makes it very difficult to respond to. There's another interesting point we identified around transparency. So what I mean by that is that the demands of end customers and auditors and regulators really into how business is conducted by firms in our industry. So it's not just did they get a good investment return, it's could they have got a better one, had they taken appropriate risk measures, what's the cost of doing X, Y, and Z. So with the sort of evolution of automated systems really across our entire industry in electronic trading, there's the ability to shine a spotlight and very great focus on little individual areas to try and assess the costs and the risks associated with that. And that provides a real challenge for vendors like ourselves. Rather than just automating a process, we also have to instrument that process and work out, was there a better way, was there a quicker way, could we have done it cheaper or faster, and actually provide that information in a measurable form back to our clients. And amidst all of this, there's the cost pressures that the whole industry is facing, both buy and sell side. Really the cost pressures are driven by a reduction in trading volumes, which puts fees on the sell side brokers, an adoption of lower fee structures in the asset management industry that reduces the revenues available to investment management firms. And these cost pressures mean that on one hand you're trying to balance these challenges that I described that require firms to do more, along with the cost pressures that actually mean they've got less money to actually do it. So if we think about how that's played over time, I think one of the things that Fidessa has been very strong at is that market analysis. We probably did ahead of the curve, which has been very productive for us because it's allowed us to feed that analysis into our product R&D to try and be there with products that are maybe required this year. And interestingly, we revisited the analysis that we did at the start of this year, again both buy and sell side, and we actually identified the same themes recurring. So on one hand, that's pleasing to hear because obviously it means we're along the right lines. We didn't get it completely wrong last year. We're still on the money. But also it means that probably these challenges have probably been bigger than any of our clients and regulators and external parties have actually really envisaged. And I think it's very much like peeling an onion. You know, you continually take off another layer and you realize there's more detail and more detail. And sometimes these problems actually require seismic shifts across the industry to try and change. And really Fidessa's ethos in the market has really always been about trying to reduce those frictional costs for the industry as a whole. Not just trying to build one system for one client and hoping other people buy it. Obviously we solve client problems, but if there are industry-wide challenges that we can help firms address, take some of that cost out of the equation, then the entire industry benefits. So really we are addressing the same challenges as before. I'd like to think we're maybe a little bit ahead of the curve in doing that, but I think the industry has to recognize that the challenges are actually probably larger than they ever expected.